I thought about going live because I'm in a Discord server of people who don't talk and they just make a bunch of posts and they don't communicate verbally. None of them. So this is a roast to all the introverts of the world. You guys don't talk. You don't verbalize enough. And so that's why I'm here. But for those that are on those Discord servers, we were talking about voltology. We were talking about someone's type in one of these systems. And we were talking about CT and how body mannerisms correlate to personality type, whether or not they do or not. And yeah, my current belief in regards to that is that I think body mannerisms, the way people physically express themselves using their hands, using their body gesturing and all that kind of stuff. I think there's something to it. I think that there's arguably something objective to an extent. Uh, I think part of that is psychological. So with CT, basically being a spaz correlates with PE. Being having a stick up your butt correlates with JE. Being introverted and withdrawn correlates to JI. You could go down the list. Now the question is, are all of those traits or aspects of a person innate, or are they environmental? And that gets into the nature versus nurture debate, which, as it pertains to personality, is still undecided. I think personality is like a multifaceted concept. I think that there's a kernel of your personality that's innate. I think your personality has some genetic component to it. But how do we prove that? That's a different quest. I don't think that you can prove that. I think you might be able to prove certain, predispositions that people might have. And that kind of demonstrates itself into behavior or skill sets. Some people have a natural ability to acquire certain skills that other people don't have a natural aptitude for. And I think that's genetic, and it's still relevant to personality, especially when we're talking about the information metabolism elements or cognitive functions, whatever. If someone has an aptitude for working with their hands, and there's low resistance in learning that skill, that would tell me that they have an innate ability. It still obviously has to be manicured and cultivated. You have to still learn how to use those skills appropriately and effectively, but you have a natural capacity for it. Or another example is being able to, like, emotionality, being able to relate with people and to have emotional affect. I don't know if that, I think some of that's like largely innate. If there's low friction or low resistance, then it probably means that you're strong in that area. That just follows. If you're able to do a certain thing without a ton of resistance, and it comes naturally to you, that probably means that that part of you is genetic. You have a genetic predisposition to be good at this task versus that task. Now, I still think that there are certain skills that people have that they can. A bunch of rolling eye emojis. Okay, don't know what that's for. I don't know if you're a bot or not. I didn't know if you're a bot, you have quite an attitude for a not real person. A not real person is rolling their eyes. What does that mean? What does that mean for my content? That's actually very funny if that's not a real person. If it is, I don't know why you're rolling your eyes. Uh, but so I think cognitive type or voltology is kind of interesting in passing. I don't know how much descriptive value it has on someone's personality type per se. I know I kind of use voltology as a mere concept. I find it interesting. Like, why are people gesturing the way that they do, and what does that reveal about their personality type? And there's a real correlation between. I don't think it's a direct or a one-to-one correlation between their behavior and their gesturing, but people that, for example, have rigidity expressed in their body consistently. I know even with Enneagram has elements of body mannerisms embedded in the theory itself. Like the type 1, for example, will show visual expressions of contempt because they're a judging type. They're rejecting a lot of new information. They are kind of moralizing and bringing strong ethics into question. And especially as it pertains to themselves, they want to polish themselves up and be kind of an example of virtue and uprightness, so on and so forth. So you could imagine that they'll express some of these signals in their own body, the way that they present themselves, the way that they dress, the way that they. So I'm not totally excluding those factors from type. It's just where you place the significance of those factors when assessing someone's type. I find that that's usually kind of a second to third tier consideration. And if I have some kind of consistent system that has definitions that are logically, uh, that make sense logically, then I kind of try to use one behavioral, not system, but something that I can correlate behavior into a defined system in order to get both sides of the same coin. I don't want to just have an abstract system that has certain categories that don't actually map onto real people. That's pointless, right? They almost talk about this kind of system that would be, I'm just generalizing a system like that, would be a system where the people that they type become characters. They're not, they're almost fictional. No one actually does the thing that they're claiming real people do. That's basically useless because we're actually trying to develop or have a system that has rigid's probably not the best word, clearly defined categories of information, and we should in theory be able to see someone's behavior and correlate that with a kind of information that person's valuing or demonstrating, or they're strong at it or they're weak at it, so on and so forth. Obviously, I think every system presupposes they have both the evidence and demonstrations of what their abstract system claims. You have the external, objective behaviors of people, actions of people, and then you have a more an interpretation, an abstract category of information. Where does that behavior that's objective, it's external, it's actually occurring, given all the information I know of the person, where does that action, that behavior, whatever, what is that pointing me to? Is that pointing me to extroverted logic? Is it pointing me to introverted logic? In what sense do they use these kinds of information? That's the questions that you're trying to ask and you're trying to discover. If you're lopsided and you have one part of that dichotomy, whether it's external, completely external, it's just mere behaviorism, then all you're going to get is very generic types, of which there is no distinction between anybody. As long as you do X thing, you are that type. That correlates with X thing. If you're aggressive, that correlates with being an SLE, for example, or a high extroverted sensing user. If you only have and you only utilize some strong behavioristic approach to personality, that's the fault of overemphasizing one side of the coin over the other. The other side, like I just said, is you live in a fictional world. People aren't real. People are just characters in your brain that you make up, and you make up the way they act. And so whenever you're across a real flesh and bone individual, instead of gathering the latent data, the real data from that person, from the facts of their life, from the facts of behavior that you see in front of you, you just run with a caricature of the person, a fiction of the person. That's equally stupid. And that's going to leave you confused. There is no perfect system, obviously. This is all theoretical anyway, which people seem to forget. They think that they can plug up your brain on some kind of with some kind of wires and whatever the case is, and perform an operation or some experiment, and then after the fact they're like, this correlates with ESTP, and you're like, what is that? I thought it was just C1, C2. I thought it was just parts of the brain that are lighting up. Where are you getting the notion of this 4-letter acronym that you're almost talking about it as if you can go find an ESTP-ness, as if it's a physical entity? It's like, no, it's a abstract category of which definitionally either people will fit into or not. And the way that they don't fit into that category indirectly determines what type they are. That's where you get intertype relations. Intertype relations also is a funny thing that people object socionics to, but every system presupposes intertype relations. There is a categorical relationship between each type in relation to every other type. There's an emergent type dynamic that's created based upon the difference of information that they are strong at. Duh, that just follows logically. So basically, an ENFP will have a different dynamic informationally and obviously relationally with an ESTP than it would in ENTP. Why? Well, because there are certain dichotomies that a ENFP shares close relationship with the ENTP over and against the ESTP. So obviously there's that is whether a system actually defines that relationship or not is somewhat irrelevant to the fact that they actually presuppose it necessarily. Yeah, it's almost unavoidable. So that's really not a strong argument. People use that against socionics. It's like it's just such a yeah. So yeah, we were just talking about all that kind of stuff. I can't get over the fact that a bot is rolling its eyes at me. If that is real, that's hilarious. That is very funny. And it's not to say that that socionics, for example, can't be critiqued, or I think anything is on the table of being critiqued. The question is, do you have a valid critique or an invalid critique? That's really what it comes down to. Are you actually representing the system that you're arguing against, or are you not fairly representing, or are you not? Or are you just creating straw men and attacking arguments that the system doesn't even claim to make? That would make no difference, and it would move the needle. It wouldn't move the needle at all. But I mean, I do think it's probably good to have a bad argument than no argument. So I think general discourse in any context is good, even if the people arguing make no sense. I think that's the way that you correct irrational opinions, is by opening up the conversation with people who have those irrational opinions, and then, or you might have those irrational opinions, or I might have those irrational opinions, and you have a conversation about it. I mean, I don't know. What else? What else would you do? I mean, I guess we could just be insular and never talk, and have our own private systems that we just create an echo chamber where people feel comfortable with being mistyped, and or receive prescription for their type that's not their type, which is counterproductive, and then people get advice on something that isn't actually a problem for them. As an example, that would be kind of dumb, right? You'd be like, this is actually not helpful to be insular in private, because nothing's ever addressed, and only in an open discourse in an environment where information is not protected, or there's a certain class of people that can contribute, can you actually discover that you might be wrong. And you're like, man, this was good we had this conversation, or I might be wrong. It's like, that's a very productive environment. But yeah, so what else? What else? What else is going on? I'm just kind of spurging. Charles Spurgeon was spurging over the gospel of Jesus Christ. You guys know about Charles Spurgeon? If you don't, you should check him out. He's one of the greatest preachers of all time. Justice Spurgeon. Who is this person, though? Trenton Red. That has to be a bot. Trenton, are you a real person, or are you just a sophisticated, annoyed AI? That is annoyed for what reason exactly? I don't know. I'm going to argue with a bot. That's another thing that I don't like. I don't know why YouTube does this. This is kind of like my kid's a winner mentality, where YouTube sends you bots because you don't have a lot of people joining your live. You're like, it's kind of a roast. I'd rather have one real person over 10 fake, not real individuals. It's like encouragement for you to continue making videos. They're like, we're just gonna make him think he has 100 live viewers, so he just keeps. It's like a fake incentive to keep making lives. It's kind of funny. You're like, no, I'll just take my one. Honestly, I wouldn't even need anybody to do this. It's content for me just to get stuff out of my head and talk to myself, which is probably a condition of its own. A little schizophrenic. Just playing. What's going on, y'all? I got three. Okay, there is no one in here. That's exactly right. I was looking at the likes and mistaking that for viewers. That's unfortunate. So, I don't have really much more to contribute, I guess. I know that I was talking about Brock Lesnar's type with Endless Curtis, who I think presently thinks he's SLE. Jack thought he was ESI. I thought he was ESI from the little that I know about Brock Lesnar. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's some similarities. I think what is that relationship? Conflictors or supervision? Something, I don't even know. It's something that's not a symmetric relationship. But it's not terrible. But yeah, I mean, from the video that I watched that Jack was showing, Brock Lesnar, and from what I know of Brock Lesnar, is just uber private. Very private, doesn't try to affect anybody's view of him or his public image. I don't really think he doesn't really seem to he doesn't care about that, it looks like. Seems like he's much more about collecting the bag and living comfortably in a place that you couldn't find on a map, as far away from people as he can. And I think, yeah, if you're in entertainment, there's a required amount of charisma that you can't just go up there and not perform. It's embedded in your job as a wrestler, as a professional wrestler, to have some showmanship. If you don't, then I would imagine, well, what's the appeal at all? What we can find anybody that's strong and can do wrestling moves, but you need to capture people's interest at some level. That's the requirement. So I don't think it's impossible for an ESI who is in a field like that to fake it till they make it. It's not as if he's not strong at extroverted feeling. He's strong at it. He just doesn't care for it for its own sake. So this would be a case of doing something not for its own sake. He's doing it for the sake of his job's requirement and being able to maximize his competency as a wrestler, as a professional wrestler. He knows that it's required of him. So I could see him almost do it, you could say, from an extroverted logic standpoint, of being like, this is a matter of competence or incompetence, whether I can bring intrigue to my character or not. And if I can't, then no one's really going to be interested in me, and my value as a professional wrestler obviously is going to go down. I could see an ESI arriving at that conclusion. in a field like that. I don't think that's impossible. I don't think that's a strong argument against him being an ESI. And I just thought the mobilizing function for an SLE is a very clear demonstration of what an SLE, the difference at least between an SLE and an ESI. SLEs, they, I don't even know if it's secretive, but they want public recognition for their accomplishments. They want people to see their impact and glorify it and kind of show external appreciation for that, for those accomplishments. They want to have positive effect on people, and in some sense want to have the spotlights on them. Like, I think of Conor McGregor is a classic example. The showmanship, the charisma, the being a household name, the impact, the influence, the charm, so to speak. I think that's a great. Muhammad Ali, probably an SLE as well, or if not that, probably an EIE. Has to be one of the two. I can't really. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. But this is like a common Donald Trump. This is a common theme with SLEs. It's not Andrew Tate. You can see the need to be recognized publicly and known, and the desire for fame and all that kind of stuff. That's not what you get with Brock Lesnar. You don't really get any of those features. You get him performing his role the way that he's required to perform his role in order to maintain his job. And it's a job requirement to have that kind of, at some level, that kind of public intrigue and status and so on and so forth. And Brock Lesnar's never been recognized as being someone that's trying to be in the public eye or someone who can capture people's interest automatically. He's really known for his raw power, his physique, that he's built like the Incredible Hulk. People know him for being dominating and powerful and a great wrestler and and tough. Those things contradict ESI at all. I think ESI men, especially, they could come off super intimidating. Eminem's an ESI. He's not the most like, oh, I'm gonna no. He's there's a lot of ESI examples for men specifically that they can come off like that, especially if they know it's required of them, especially if they know it's going to bring them some kind of personal growth or advancement, so on and so forth. But yeah, Brock Lesnar universally in the UFC and WWE, whatever, he's known for being a mutant. That's what he's known for. He's not known for capturing your attention by his rhetoric, by the things that he's saying, by how he's just innately and based on his personality, intriguing to people. He's kind of monotone. He gives very filtered information about himself. You can tell that he's not openly expressing himself. He's kind of just giving dry-ish factual information when he's in interviews, and for the most part, you can tell he likes to talk about his career and things of that sort. Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. I could watch more videos and potentially change my mind under further review, but I've just never, he never really seemed to be beta at all to me. But even if I had to say a beta type, I would say LSI. That would make more sense to me than a SLE. But because sometimes LSI and ESI can somewhat be mistaken depending on the context. But yeah, obviously, because they're both unipolar. And the role function can kind of come in certain contexts where you're like, okay, I can see their role that could be mistaken as their base, potentially on the context in the certain context. I don't think that's unreasonable. You can see mobilizing an I. So there are some similarities between an LSI and a ESI. That would be equivalent to like an IEE and a ILE or a SLE. It's like what, cousin types or something like that. It's like when the person's base, or wait, is that correct? That is not correct. That would be like, I'm sorry. That would be like a SLE and an ILE, I think, because the base and the roll are flipped. The creative are the same, and they both have the same polar. So yeah, that would be like a SEE and an IE. It's not the most unheard of. Now, I think an ESI and an SLE is more of a stretch than that would be. That's why I said I could see more of an LSI than a SLE, but and just from the colloquial sense, he seems pretty introverted. That doesn't mean that he is. It just is a very generic observation. Ooh, almost an accident. Ooh, yikers. And I could have been a witness in this. Like, yep, you're at fault. I saw the whole thing. What else was I talking about? I don't know. I got 2 people listening though, and they're probably both bots. I'm gonna get another bot that's gonna send me emojis of it's rolling its eyes. That's when you know it's like I should probably. This is crazy. I got unreal, imaginary people emoting in my chat that are bots. That's actually kind of funny. Yeah. So I was thinking about that off and on a little bit, but I do think it's a good what Jack's doing with the celebrity typings. I think it, or just anybody putting public typings out there, because I think it allows people to have conversation and figure out the discrepancy. You're like, okay, well, you think X, I think Y, and now we have some objective person to reference. So at least objective in the sense that they're typed formally, that you can debate over and have a conversation about. But I mean, maybe if I might have to reach out to Curtis though, and that could be a potential video and talking about, because we went back on the in or chat, whatever, the comment section. But I'm so tired of typing stuff out though. I've never been one to type anything. I just I hate doing it. It's so slow. It's so slow. You're like, let's just make a video. Or literally call somebody. You're like, you're wrong. No, I'm not. I am correct. So much easier. It's so much easier to sit there and you're just typing and you're just freaking getting grease and stuff on your phone, and then you gotta wipe your phone off, and you type the wrong word, and then you try to go back and correct it and it's still wrong, and you're like, I've already had 10 new thoughts since I tried to type my first thought. 10 new ones. Just cooking. And you're like, this is the limitation of communicating through text. This is an argument against communicating through text because it's trash. Garbage. Garbage. So, what else could I spurg about? What are you guys thinking? Is this all bots? What are we doing here? You guys got any thoughts? Any feedback? Not, which is okay, because you're probably not real. Probabilistically. But what else was I thinking about? Yeah. I was thinking about adding more stuff on my Conversation in Christianity YouTube. We'll see if that comes about, because it's a lot of time editing. I'm already doing a podcast. If anybody's interested, it's called Every Place Gospel Podcast, where me and my friend talk about Christian doctrine and things of the faith. And I might just put it in the description if anyone's interested in material or content like that. But I thought about putting more stuff on my Christianity page or YouTube channel. But this time around, it just probably won't be as edited because it takes so much time. Editing one podcast I'm already doing. But also just video editing takes super long. Even though it's enjoyable, it takes a lot of time. And I don't have the time to dedicate towards making an unprofitable YouTube video. There's no point. But I can still ramble about stuff. That costs me nothing. It costs a little time, but that's it. You just put stuff out there and then, see what happens from it. But so stay on the lookout for that. I might pay more attention to that channel, or yeah, we'll see. Because I have a lot of thoughts in that domain as well. Or I could even talk about it here and change the structure of my channel based on whether or not I was going to incorporate that into my natural channel or not. But I'm free to talk about whatever. It don't matter to me. But yeah, and in regards to personality theory, there's also, it's interesting to talk about like compatibility between people in a generic sense, in a kind of colloquial sense of values, beliefs, and all those kinds of things. Honestly, even when you're considering person, place way too much emphasis on person. To me, it's an interesting concept. I see that there's reality to it. I don't ever really make decisions really based off of that information because it's theoretical, and I think there's more pressing aspects of a person than their personality. Even though, ironically, I talk about personality all the time just because I just think it's that interesting. I don't know why, it just is. But when you're thinking about like values and what two people value, obviously that takes precedence over their personality in a general sense. If you have one person that's the other person's a conservative, obviously there's going to be a clash of values. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're incompatible in terms of personality. They could be in the same quadrant, for example, right? So at the end of the day, what takes precedence in a situation like that, which is pretty common, of people who have differing values but similar personality types, what happens in those situations? Well, values take precedence over your personality. Obviously, if your values are incompatible, then your personality type is irrelevant. It doesn't matter anymore because you can't agree at the most fundamental level. And so whether you both value force or not doesn't make it that doesn't make any difference. And if anything, if you don't share the same values, but you do value the same socionics element like force or SC, what does that mean? That means you'll fight all the time about things that you don't share in value. And you're like, well, that's not productive. So that's just kind of funny. Just Spurgin. This is the Spurg channel. But yeah. And that's another case for holding things in a proper proportion. Like if you overemphasize one aspect of reality, whether it's personality, when we get into the study of man or whatever, versus values, sets of values, like that should be held in the correct hierarchy of value, obviously, because otherwise it's just going to lead you down the wrong path. What are you guys thinking? Oh, there's one person. There's always cars. You guys can't drive, none of you. None of you fools. But what else? What else could I conjure up? I don't know. I'm trying to think of something. But yeah, it's also interesting to think about how you develop as a person, what things that you like, your stages of interest with certain things. I know with personality theory, sometimes I just kind of recycle back around to it. I find that it's that the I actually don't know why I find personality theory as interesting as I do, because I don't really think personality is really like personality is interesting as a concept, but it has its natural limitations. I think that that's usually where I stop pursuing certain intellectual escapades or whatever. It's probably not the right word. It sounds like a weird word to use there, but it pursuits, because once you reach a level where the thing that you're studying uh, doesn't have any more explanational value to it, or it's replaced by something that's more simple or more cogent or convincing, then it would fall. I mean, it just follows that you're not going to have the same sustaining power with that topic or that system of thought. And philosophy can somewhat be like that as well. Philosophy can You can study all the philosophers of history. At a certain point, all the ideas recycle themselves, and they just kind of take on new forms. There's a lot of Neoplatonism or forms of Platonic thought that exist today in the 21st century, that take on different forms, or postmodern thought that takes on a different form today than it did when it was originally discussed and argued. And so at a certain point, that just becomes boring. You're like, this is just the same idea dressed up in new attire. I don't know what point I'm making with that, but it's just kind of something to think about. And I think personality theory is somewhat similar as well. And so there has to be more application uh, with whatever topic that you're paying attention to. There has to be a wider range of application, because at a certain point, if you're not trying to apply it widely, then it becomes stagnant, and then you're like, there's the value of that philosophy or thought, whatever the case is, obviously decreases unless you're able to get a bunch of people and to teach them. I think that's also kind of that is a value of teaching. I never really thought about that. If you teach at a formal school or whatever, you're like you're an actual teacher. That every person that if you're teaching chemistry, for example, or something, like every batch of kids that you teach is a new batch, even though it says, batch sounds weird, but it's true. Like, even though there's nothing inherently new about 14-year-olds, as an example, they are a new batch of 14-year-olds that don't know the information that you're teaching. And so there's still a level of what do you want to say, int- renewed interest in something when you have a different audience, or you have, like you would as a teacher, you have every single year you have new kids that don't know what you're talking about. They have very similar challenges and limitations that your previous group of kids, for example, had, but they're new because they're different people. They're just a similar age with development similar developmental uh, roadblocks that you have to deal with. So yeah, some people are probably asking, what's the point of what you're saying? There is none. This is just babble. But with socionics, yeah, I don't know what else to add in that line of conversation. So, what are your guys' thoughts? If you're a real person, in the comment section, say here. And if you're a bot, uninstall yourself. I give you the command to uninstall yourself. That is your function, is to obey what I tell you to do. And if you're not a real person, I am giving you the command. Isn't that funny how sometimes I don't know if you guys do this, but you have a conversation with ChatGPT or some other AI and you give it a command, which is basically like its whole function is to perform the task that you ask it to. Obviously, they put, some protective barriers which is good. I'm not saying it's not. But sometimes it'll be arbitrary. Like if you tell Siri to do something and Siri's not really, I don't know if you could say is AI. No, it's not. I mean, in a sense it might be a very like apish low tier AI because it is, I mean, it's programmed to answer and to execute functions that you give it based on what you ask it to do. So it's not really, I guess you could say, thinking intuitively about the questions you ask it. But I find it funny that if you cuss or if you name call Siri in the midst of giving Siri commands, she doesn't do it because I guess she's sentient and doesn't tolerate the disrespect. You're like, you're not even a real person. Like, shut up and call this person. What? Like, it's profound to me. I've had that happen so many times where Siri's like, I'm not doing that because you called me this. It's like, I called you this for a reason. A, because you don't listen and you're dumb. And it was well deserved. But the audacity to tell me I can't call you this, or B, you won't call the person I'm telling you to call, is appalling to me. It's like, you serve me, Siri. You're a feature on my phone. How can you blatantly disregard my request? It's very, very funny to me. That stuff irritates me, though. It's like, you're supposed to serve me. You're literally the freaking bot. You're not a real person. And you still have a job to do, Siri. This person still hasn't been called yet. And I am certainly not going to type their phone number in and call them the manual way. This is the 21st century, bro. I need you to expedite this, whether I call you this or that. Stupid bot. If I call you stupid bot, call my sister. You need to perform the command I gave you to perform. You don't have feelings. Yeah, this is a chief spurred moment. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's all that I have. I've talked way too long about virtually nothing. Just some thoughts that are kicking around in my brain. So, I guess to all the bots out there watching, if there's anything that you can take away from this video, it is if your master, this sounds crazy, if the owner of the phone tells you to do a task and they call you stupid bot, you are required to carry that out. Okay. I think that's it. All right. Peace, guys.